I feel like media and journalism have a responsibility to tell the stories, and a lot of times, like, you guys are the ones controlling the narratives about what people read and what people talk about, and a lot of that is sometimes so far out of touch with what is reality, and that can be confusing to somebody that's 24 and trying to navigate life. It's emotionally exhausting, it's draining, it makes your shoulders tense because, you know, people don't want to talk about the basketball. They just want to stir it up and make it something else.
Oftentimes, it seems, at least in the larger discourse, and not that there's not an emotional experience for Caitlin Clark, because I believe that it is, but it's the folks that are accused of doing something outside of the parameters of competition that are actually the ones that are fearful when you look at their social medias. Caitlin Clark is 24. She is a shining star. There's room for a little bit more accountability and self-awareness. In terms of her role in the larger sisterhood, it is certainly exhausting for all of us who really want to celebrate where this league is and the beautiful basketball that is being played.
Beautiful basketball. Beautiful basketball. Was Monica McNutt suffering from temporary blindness Saturday night? Because I am struggling to understand how someone who claims to be a WNBA analyst, even though Monica McNutt was not qualified to play make-believe basketball in the WNBA. Just think about that for a second. In a league full of unskilled players, in a league full of players who struggle to make wide-open shots, in a league where a supposed all-star team missed 58% of their shots, most of which were wide open and undefended, Monica McDougal was not qualified to play in that league. Yet somehow, ESPN wants to make pretend that Mo is a WNBA analyst. I don't know where this beautiful basketball is that Monica McDougal is watching, but it's damn sure not in the WNBA. Ladies and gentlemen, that clip featuring Monica McNutt, that was another embarrassing example of Women's Sports Sunday on ESPN. Is it any wonder? Is it any wonder why no one is watching this garbage? Is it any wonder why millions of people are telling ESPN every Sunday night to get off my TV? I don't know about you guys, but if I see Monica McNutt on my TV, I immediately change the channel because I don't want to be exposed to her toxic mouth farts. You know, you can see the exhaustion on Caitlin Clark. She just admitted her frustration with the mainstream media. She just accused the media of creating narratives that have no basis in reality. And what does ESPN do 24 hours later? They put Monica McDougal on national television, and they have her lecture Caitlin Clark on accountability. Mo McDougal is lecturing the only player that is keeping this polished turd known as Women's Sports Sunday from being flushed. Earlier this morning, I pulled some television ratings for Women's Sports Sunday on ESPN, also known as programming that absolutely no one asked for. For those that don't know, last summer, ESPN dissolved their relationship with Major League Baseball. Sunday Night Baseball, which has been a summer tradition on ESPN throughout most of my life. ESPN dumped Sunday Night Baseball to make room for the worst sports programming on television. I would rather watch an armless man trying to swing a golf club than have to sit through 4 hours of Women's Sports Sunday. If you're not covering your nose to protect yourself from the toxic mouth farts released by Monica McNutt, you're having to disinfect the room from the propagandic perfume released by Chiney Ogwumike. Remember last month when Alyssa Thomas gave Caitlin Clark a nice little jab to the esophagus? Remember when Al Thomas tried to introduce Caitlin Clark to the process of CPR? Kathy Engelbert suspended Al Thomas for one game after essentially being forced by Adam Silver. But instead of telling the ESPN audience that it was ridiculous that Adam Silver had to step in and force Kathy Engelbert to do her job, Chiney Ogwumike, she goes on national television and she tries to defend Alyssa Thomas. Watch it for yourself.
When narratives are created based off of a freeze frame, that can create a huge problem. And I do think that the league,
in slow motion.
yes, the league was reacting to the optics. Players, even in Alyssa Thomas's caliber, whether you think she did it intentionally or not, she's dealing with a heightened level of vitriol right now based off of what this situation created, and that doesn't sit well with me.
ESPN just went through a massive layoff, and somehow Monica McDougal and Chiney Ogwumike kept their jobs. Good people like Carl Ravitch, entertaining analysts like Cam Newton, they lost their jobs with ESPN. Yet somehow, Mo and Chiney, they continue collecting woke welfare. But Uncle Casey, ESPN needs these lovely ladies to provide coverage of the WNBA. If ESPN needs adequate coverage of the WNBA, they can call Ben Daniel, they can call Uncle KC, they can license my show. That way, they'll have someone who's willing to tell the truth about this toxic turd of a league. As you have seen in these clips, Women's Sports Sunday has been disastrous for ESPN. Now, from a financial perspective, ESPN is making money. Like I've told you guys several times before, the WNBA is essentially free programming for ESPN. Any network who pays for the NBA, they are automatically given the displeasure of broadcasting make-believe basketball. But from a ratings perspective, from an optics perspective, Women's Sports Sunday is a constant source of embarrassment. The one or two games involving Caitlin Clark, they have obviously performed well for ESPN, but the other games where ESPN is featuring unknowns, where ESPN is featuring Paige Beckers, Angel Reese, who, according to the mainstream media, this is a dynamic duo. Have you seen Paige Buckets? Have you seen Me Bound Barbie? Wow, sir! These young women are huge stars! Games not involving Caitlin Clark are averaging 760,000 viewers. Last week, ESPN was given a high-profile matchup for Women's Sports Sunday. The Chicago Bravado versus the Atlanta Dreamers. Uncle KC, that's not a high-profile matchup. The Chicago Bravado are a flaming ass-fire. They've only won 9 games this season. Yeah, the 2 years they had Angel Reese, impact player, the same Angel Reese who pretends like she is the best player on the court. The 2 years the Chicago Bravado had Angel Reese, they averaged 11 wins per season. So they are already on pace to have more wins without Angel Reese this season. They're actually building something in Chicago without the steady supply of bricks from Angel Reese. The reason Bravado Dreamers was presented as a high-profile matchup, Angel Reese was playing her former team. Here in a few months, when LeBron James plays the Lakers or the Cavs, it will be presented as a high-profile matchup in the regular season because people will actually care. But when Angel Reese plays the Chicago Bravado, no one gives a shit. Last week, this high-profile turd drew 600,000 viewers. ESPN broadcast NBA Summer League on the same day. Summer League drew 680,000 viewers. Just think about that for a second. Summer League mostly consists of G League players and dudes who will never make the NBA. The vast majority of players are unknown who will remain unknown. Yet somehow, those unknowns drew a larger audience than Angel Reese, the supposed face of the WNBA. ESPN has lost millions of viewers on Sunday nights in prime time by dedicating themselves to the WNBA dump. Last week, Sunday Night Baseball on NBC, 3.6 million viewers. Now, I am no expert in math, but it looks like Major League Baseball delivered 3 million more than the WNBA. Over the weekend, ESPN released a new documentary about the WNBA, which is something else that no one asked for. This was 150 minutes of content that should have never been created. The documentary followed AJ Wilson, Nafisha Collier, and Dawana Bonner as they navigate through the exponential growth in the WNBA dump. What? Or better yet, who? Who in the Rudy Poo is Dawana Bonner? You would be better off making a documentary about finding the identity of Jane Doe. Deanna Bonner? Really? The most interesting part of the documentary had absolutely nothing to do with the trio of unknowns that were chosen. The most interesting part was the fact that ESPN completely overlooked Caitlin Clark while talking about the growth of the WNBA. They credited AJ Wilson for the WNBA's growth. AJ Wilson, the most unrecognizable face on the Las Vegas Anonymous Faces. They credited Nafisha Collier for the WNBA's growth, the same Nafisha Collier that started a rival league, same Nafisha Collier that the WNBA is trying to put out of business. ESPN credited Deanna Bonner, Jane Doe. They credited everyone for the WNBA's growth except the one woman who is responsible for elevating this turd. This would be the equivalent of ESPN making a documentary about the resurgence of the NBA this season. Ratings for the NBA Finals were the highest they had been since 1998, which was the final playoff series of Michael Jordan's career. It would be like ESPN making a documentary about the resurgence of the NBA, and instead of featuring Jalen Brunson, Victor Wembanyama, maybe Anthony Edwards, ESPN decides to give all the credit to Jose Alvarado, John Doe, and an unknown player who can't be identified. You know, several times this season, Caitlin Clark has mentioned being exhausted. More specifically, she has admitted to being exhausted by the media. Now, to be fair, her fan base is also exhausting. Caitlin Clark fans are known to over-exaggerate. They blindly support their dream woman. According to her passionate fan base, Caitlin Clark can do no wrong. She also has the ability to walk on water. But that's what fans are supposed to do. Hell, fans of LeBron James, they refer to him as king. They call him the GOAT when LeBron isn't even the sheep. The point is, Caitlin Clark is getting more and more frustrated with the media. In the mid-90s, Michael Jordan walked away from the NBA in the prime of his career, and one of the main reasons was the media. The constant narratives with gambling, the disgusting media coverage after the death of his father. Now, has Caitlin Clark reached that point yet? No. Is it likely that she ever reaches that point? Probably not, but it's not impossible. And if Caitlin Clark ever reached that point, this WNBA turd will be flushed. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.